Are you one of those people who prefers to be alone? Who feels more energized after spending time with yourself than after a night out with friends? Who consciously chooses moments of solitude even when you could be in company? If so, you're part of a special group of human beings who've discovered something most people still don't understand. Solitude isn't a punishment, it's a superpower. While society treats the preference for solitude as something strange or problematic, you intuitively know there's something profound happening when you're alone. It's not escapism, it's not antisocial behavior. It's a superior way of existing that few people can access. But have you ever wondered why? Why do you feel so complete in your own company while others fall into despair? The answer might surprise you. Your natural attraction to solitude isn't a personality quirk. It's a sign that you've instinctively passed the most important test of human existence. A test that most people don't even know exists, let alone manage to pass. You've discovered something that philosophers, mystics, and great thinkers took decades to understand. Solitude is where we find our true strength. Since childhood, you were probably questioned about your preference for being alone. Worried family members asked if you were okay. Teachers suggested you should be more social. Friends didn't understand why you'd turn down invitations to be with yourself. But something inside you always knew those moments alone were precious, necessary, transformative. That intuition was right. You naturally discovered what life forces most people to learn through crises, that the ability to be comfortably alone is the foundation of an authentic existence. While others build their lives on the need for external approval, you built yours on something much more solid: your own company. The difference between you and most people isn't just preference, it's a fundamentally different way of processing existence. When others flee from silence because it scares them, you embrace it because you recognize its wisdom. When others avoid being alone because they fear what they might discover about themselves, you seek that discovery like a treasure. This natural search for silence puts you in a unique position in life. While most people live in constant reaction to what others think, say, or expect from them, you've developed the rare ability to consult your own inner wisdom first. You don't need an audience to feel valid because you've found a much more important audience: yourself. In the silence you so value, transformations happen that go unnoticed by most. Each moment alone is an opportunity to calibrate your inner compass, to check if your external life is aligned with your internal truths. You intuitively use solitude like others use therapy, to process, integrate, grow. This natural process of self-examination that you practice in solitude develops qualities that are rare in the modern world. You probably have an uncommon ability to make decisions based on your own values, not social pressures. You can tolerate disapproval better than most, because your own approval matters more than others. Your natural relationship with solitude has also taught you something that takes others decades to learn: the difference between being alone and being isolated. You know you can be surrounded by people and still feel lonely if you're not being authentic. And you know you can be completely alone and feel deeply connected to yourself and to life. This distinction is crucial because it reveals something fundamental about your personality. You value quality over quantity, both in relationships and experiences. You prefer one deep conversation to 1,000 superficial interactions. You prefer an afternoon of meaningful reflection to a week of empty distractions. Your attraction to solitude is really an attraction to depth. Society frequently misinterprets this preference. They call people like you antisocial, when in reality you're selectively social. They say you're running away from others, when in truth you're running toward yourself. They suggest you're afraid of intimacy, when actually you've developed the deepest form of intimacy possible: intimacy with yourself. This intimacy with yourself gives you an extraordinary advantage in life. You know your real motivations, not just the ones that are socially acceptable. You recognize your behavior patterns before they become destructive. You can distinguish between your own desires and those you've internalized from other people. This internal clarity is a superpower that few possess. Your natural preference for solitude also protects you from one of the most common traps of modern existence: excessive emotional dependency. While many become slaves to constant approval from others, you've developed an internal source of validation. This doesn't mean you don't value relationships. It means you choose them out of love, not need. This emotional independence allows you to form healthier relationships when you choose to connect with others. You can be genuinely present because you're not desperately seeking something from the other person. You can establish clear boundaries because you're not afraid of being alone if someone doesn't respect those boundaries. You can be honest because your emotional security doesn't depend on constantly pleasing others. But there's an even deeper aspect of your relationship with solitude that deserves recognition. In your moments alone, you probably access states of consciousness that are inaccessible in the midst of social noise. Moments of clarity where you see your life with a perspective that normally escapes everyday perception. Insights about yourself, about life, about the meaning of things. These moments aren't accidental. They happen because you've created space for them. While others fill every free minute with activities, conversations, entertainment, you consciously preserve spaces of silence where your inner wisdom can emerge. You instinctively know that creativity, intuition, and the deepest insights are born in silence, not in noise. This regular practice of contemplative silence puts you in the same category as the great thinkers, artists, and mystics of history. They all understood that solitude isn't isolation, but connection. Connection with yourself, with life, with something greater that transcends the social ego. You may not consciously realize it, but you're practicing a form of secular spirituality through your natural preference for solitude. This deep connection with yourself also gives you a unique perspective on the nature of freedom. You experience daily something that others only theorize about: the freedom to be completely authentic. In your moments alone, you don't need to wear masks, don't need to play roles, don't need to adapt your personality to others' expectations. You can simply be. This regular experience of total authenticity creates a solid foundation for your identity. You know who you are because you regularly spend time with yourself without distractions. This identity clarity protects you from being easily influenced or manipulated by others. You have a firm center that remains stable regardless of external storms. Your natural attraction to solitude also reveals something important about your relationship with time. You probably have an uncommon ability to be present, to fully inhabit the current moment. This happens because you're not constantly running from yourself through distractions. You can sit in silence and find richness in the present moment that others miss because they're always rushing to the next thing. This capacity for presence is one of the most valuable gifts that solitude offers. In an era of fragmented attention and constant anxiety, you've developed the ability to move at your own pace, to find peace in quietude, to discover meaning in simplicity. This isn't just a personal preference, it's an advanced way of living. People who, like you, genuinely appreciate solitude often develop a more mature relationship with their emotions. Instead of depending on others to regulate their emotional states, you've learned to navigate the ups and downs of human experience on your own. You can process sadness without needing constant consolation. You can celebrate joys without needing external validation. This emotional self-regulation is a mark of deep psychological maturity. This emotional maturity manifests in ways others may not fully understand. You probably don't dramatize difficult situations because you've developed the capacity to process them internally first. You don't seek attention through emotional crises because you've found healthier ways to deal with challenges. This inner stability is something you've earned through the regular practice of facing yourself with honesty. There's also a creative aspect to your relationship with solitude that deserves recognition. In moments when you're alone, your mind can wander freely, make unusual connections, generate original ideas. Genuine creativity requires space and silence to flourish, and you've naturally created ideal conditions for it. Even if you don't consider yourself a particularly creative person, your mind is probably more inventive and original than you realize. This creativity extends beyond traditional arts. You probably find creative ways to solve problems, unique ways to see situations, original perspectives on complex issues. This happens because you give your mind space to process information in non-linear ways, to make associations that aren't obvious in the midst of social agitation. Your preference for solitude also indicates something important about your relationship with authenticity. You probably have a natural aversion to superficiality, a need for depth in experiences and relationships. This might make you seem demanding or difficult to some, but it actually reveals that you've developed high standards for what you consider a meaningful life. These high standards aren't neurotic perfectionism. They're the result of having experienced the richness that comes from deep self-knowledge. When you know how it feels to be truly connected with yourself, it becomes difficult to accept superficial connections with others. When you've experienced the peace that comes from inner silence, it becomes hard to value empty conversations just to fill time. This can create some social challenges. Other people might interpret your selectivity as snobbery, your need for alone time as rejection, your preference for depth as excessive intensity. But these are small prices you pay for living according to your authentic nature, instead of conforming to social expectations. In fact, your ability to be comfortably alone is a form of quiet leadership. You model for others that it's possible to be complete without constant external approval. You demonstrate that happiness can come from within, instead of depending on external circumstances. You show that solitude can be a conscious choice, instead of a condition to be feared. Many people who, like you, value solitude eventually discover they have an important role as guides for others who are beginning their own journey of self-discovery. Not necessarily as formal teachers, but as living examples that it's possible to live authentically and independently. Your mere existence offers hope to those who are struggling to accept themselves. There's a spiritual aspect to your relationship with solitude that may not be immediately obvious. In moments of deep silence, you probably access states of consciousness that transcend the everyday concerns of the ego, moments where you feel connected to something greater than yourself, where you experience a sense of unity with life that's impossible to access in the midst of social noise. These experiences, even if you don't label them as spiritual, have a profound effect on your perspective about life. They give you a sense of meaning that doesn't depend on external achievements. They connect you with aspects of existence that are deeper than the superficial dramas that occupy most people's attention. This expanded perspective that comes from your moments of solitude gives you a unique ability to see situations with clarity. You can probably identify underlying patterns in people's problems, see through unnecessary dramas, focus on what really matters. This clarity of vision is a gift both to you and to those who have the wisdom to seek your perspective. Your natural attraction to solitude also indicates an intuitive understanding of something modern psychology is rediscovering: the vital importance of alone time for mental health. While society promotes hyperconnectivity, you instinctively know that the mind needs periods of rest, reflection, and recalibration. You practice an advanced form of mental hygiene. This regular practice of mental care through solitude gives you emotional resilience that's rare in the modern world. You can face crises without collapsing because you've developed solid internal resources. You can navigate changes without despair because you have a stable foundation within yourself. This inner strength is something you've cultivated consciously or unconsciously through your moments of solitude. But perhaps the most important aspect of your relationship with solitude is how it's prepared you for something everyone eventually faces: the fundamental reality that, in the deepest essence of human experience, we're all alone with our own consciousness. This isn't a depressing truth. It's a liberating truth when understood correctly. You've already made peace with this existential reality. You understand that each person is navigating their own unique journey of consciousness, and that this uniqueness isn't a flaw in existence, but its most beautiful characteristic. Your experience of life is uniquely yours. Your thoughts are uniquely yours. Your perspective is uniquely yours. And you've learned to celebrate this uniqueness instead of fearing it. This acceptance of existential uniqueness frees you from many of the anxieties that torment others. You don't need to be understood by everyone because you understand yourself. You don't need to fit into every group because you found peace in being a group of one. You don't need to follow the same paths others follow because you have confidence to create your own path. This existential freedom you've conquered through your relationship with solitude is the true measure of a life well lived. It's not measured by external achievements or social recognition, but by the ability to be at peace with yourself regardless of external circumstances. You've achieved something many seek their entire lives without finding: the ability to be your own favorite company. And this isn't narcissism or self-centeredness. It's mature self-love. It's the ability to treat yourself with the same care and respect you'd offer a dear friend. It's the wisdom to recognize that the most important relationship in your life is the relationship you have with yourself, because that's the relationship that determines the quality of all others. Your natural preference for solitude is, in fact, a preference for authenticity, for depth, for the freedom to be completely yourself. It's a sign of inner strength, not social weakness. It's evidence of emotional maturity, not interpersonal immaturity. It's proof that you passed the most important test of human existence. You learned to love yourself enough to enjoy your own company. This is an extraordinary achievement in a world that constantly tells us we need others to feel complete. You discovered that completeness comes from within, that happiness is an inside job, that peace is a state you can access regardless of external circumstances. And when you live from this internal completeness, something magical happens in your relationships with others. You can be with people out of genuine love instead of desperate need. You can give full attention because you're not seeking something in return. You can establish healthy boundaries because you don't fear being alone if necessary. Paradoxically, your ability to be alone makes you more capable of authentic connections with others. This is what makes you a special person. You understood something about human existence that others are still trying to learn. You discovered that solitude isn't the opposite of connection. It's the foundation of it. That emotional independence isn't the opposite of love. It's what makes true love possible. That being comfortably alone isn't antisocial. It's the most advanced form of being social because you relate from fullness, not from lack. Your journey with solitude has taught you that you are enough. You don't need to be more extroverted, more social, more like other people to be valuable. Your way of being in the world, including your preference for moments of solitude, is perfect as it is. It's your unique contribution to the diversity of human experience. And if you've made it this far recognizing yourself in these words, you're part of an invisible but powerful community. People who found strength in solitude, wisdom in silence, freedom in their own company. You're not alone in preferring to be alone. There are others like you who understood the profound value of cultivating an intimate relationship with themselves. This understanding isn't the end of your journey, but a recognition of what you've already achieved. You passed the most important test of human life. You learned to love yourself enough to enjoy who you are when no one else is watching. And that's a victory that deserves to be celebrated, recognized, and honored. If these reflections touch something deep in you, if you recognized your own journey in these words, please subscribe to the channel for more content that celebrates the unique and authentic ways of living. And leave a like. This way you help other people who also find strength in solitude discover they're not alone in this preference. Because sometimes the most valuable thing we can do is simply validate the experience of those who, like you, discovered that the best company that exists is your own.